Hi folks, in this video I'm decided to discuss about a genius. Please watch till end because the sadness of what happened to this genius. He's a British mathematician and a logician who made major contributions to mathematics, cryptanalysis, logic, philosophy, and mathematical biology, and also new areas later named computer science, cognitive science, artificial intelligence, and artificial life. All I'm going to discuss is about Alan Turing, who was born on June 23rd, 1912, in London, England, and died June 7th, 1954. Alan Turing was educated at a top private school. He entered the University of Cambridge to study mathematics in 1931. After graduating in 1934, he was elected to a fellowship at King's College in recognition of his research in probability theory. In 1936, Turing seminal paper on computable numbers with an application to the N-Childers problem, which is basically the decision problem, was recommended for publication by American mathematical logician Alonzo Church, who had himself just published a paper that reached the same conclusion as Turing's, although by different method. Turing's method, but not so much churches, had profound significance for emerging science of computing. Later that year, Turing moved to Princeton University to study for PhD in mathematics logic under Church's direction, which he ended completing in 1938.
What is the Entscheidungs problem? What mathematicians called an effective method for solving a problem was simply one that could be carried out by a human mathematical clerk working by rote. In Turing's time, these rote workers were in fact called computers, and human computers carried out some aspects of the work later done by electronic computers. The Entscheidungs problem sought an effective method for solving the fundamental mathematical problem of determining exactly which mathematical statements are probable within a given formal mathematical system and which are not. A method for determining this is called a decision method. It was in the course of his work on the Entscheidungs problem that Turing invented the universal Turing machine, an abstract computing machine that encapsulates the fundamental logical principles of the digital computer. The Church-Turing thesis. An important step in Turing's argument about the Entscheidungs problem was the claim, now called the Church-Turing thesis, that everything humanly computable can also be computed by the universal Turing machine. The claim is important because it marks out the limits of human computation. Church, in his work, used instead of the thesis that all human computable functions are identical to what he called lambda definable functions, functions on the positive integers whose values can be calculated by a process of repeated substitution, Turing showed in 1936 that Church's thesis was equivalent to his own by proving that every lambda definable function is computable by the universal Turing machine and vice versa. In a review of Turing's work, Church acknowledged the superiority of Turing's formulation of the thesis over his own, which made no reference to the computing machinery, saying that the concept of computability by a Turing machine has the advantage of making the identification with effectiveness evident immediately. Codebreaker. Enigma machine was used by the Germans to code their military communications during World War II. British mathematician Alan Turing helped break the Enigma code. After returning from the United States to his fellowship at King's College in the summer of 1938, Turing went on to join the Government Code and Cipher School, and at the outbreak of war with Germany in September 1939, he moved to the organization's wartime headquarters at Bletchley Park, Berkhamshire. During the autumn of 1939 and the spring of 1940, Turing and others designed a related but very different code-breaking machine known as the bomb. For the rest of the war, bombs supplied the Allies with large quantities of military intelligence. By early 1942, the cryptanalysts at Bletchley Park were decoding about 39,000 intercepted messages each month, a figure that rose subsequently to more than 84,000 per month, 2 messages every minute, day and night. In 1942, Turing also devised the first systematic method for breaking messages encrypted by the sophisticated German cipher machine that the British called Tunny. At the end of the war, Turing was made an officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, or OBE, for his code-breaking work.
Now let me conclude this video. Alan Turing was elected a Fellow of Royal Society of London in March 1951, a high honor. Yet his life was about to become very hard. In March 1952, he was convicted of gross indecency, that is to say, homosexuality, a crime in Britain at that time, and he was sentenced to 12 months of hormone therapy. Now, with a criminal record, he would never again be able to work for government communication headquarters, the British government post-war code-breaking center. Alan spent the remainder of his short career at Manchester, where he was appointed to a specially created readership in theory of computing in May 1953. From 1951, Alan had been working on what is now known as artificial life. He published The Chemical Basis for Morphogenesis in 1952, describing aspects of his research on the development of form and pattern in living organisms. Alan Turing used Manchester Ferranti Mark I computer to model his hypothesized chemical mechanism for the generation of anatomical structure in animals and plants. In the midst of this groundbreaking work, Alan Turing was discovered dead in his bed, poisoned by cyanide. The official verdict was suicide, but no motive was established at the 1954 inquest. His death is often attributed to the hormone treatment he received at the hands of the authorities following his trial for being gay. Yet he died more than a year after hormone doses had ended, and in any case, the resilient Turing had borne that cruel treatment with what his close friend Peter Hilton called amused fortitude. Also, to judge by the records of the inquest, no evidence at all was presented to indicate that Alan Turing intended to take his own life, nor that the balance of his mind was disturbed, as the coroner claimed. In fact, his mental state appears to have been unremarkable at the time. Although the suicide cannot be ruled out, it is also possible that his death was simply an accident, the result of his inhaling cyanide fumes from an experiment in the tiny laboratory adjoining his bedroom. Nor can murder by the Secret Service be entirely ruled out, given that Alan Turing knew so much about cryptanalysis at the time when homosexuals were regarded as threats to national security. By the early 21st century, Alan Turing's prosecution for being gay had become infamous. In 2009, British Prime Minister Gordon Brown, speaking on behalf of British government, publicly apologized for Alan Turing's utterly unfair treatment. 4 years later, Queen Elizabeth II granted Alan Turing a royal pardon. Thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and share this video. Thank you.